Ooh, fancy.
Yeah,
Recording.
I just wanted to let folks know we're recording this so that the library technician students who aren't able to make it, they're able to view it down the line in the future. And to just welcome some of our library technician instructors, Ariane Lee, Delilada Joby, Ruben Amador, and myself. We're here, we're excited to meet you. And we're really thankful that you're here to meet with the Dial folks. And we're engaged, we're active. So if you have questions, feel free to unmute and just ask. We really want to try to recreate that in-person feeling. Or if you prefer to use the chat, that's fine. I'll be monitoring the chat too. So definitely want you to feel engaged in the process and like you're part of the team. So with that, I'll go ahead and hand it over to my colleague, Donna Harris. She's been, I'm very grateful for her. She's gone ahead and organized the majority of how this event will flow. And I'm gonna fire up just a PowerPoint here. So there's some visuals to go along with what we're talking about. Take it away, Donna.
Thank you, Colin. And welcome to everybody, and especially our students. We're so glad that you're joining us. This career event is part of the Library Technology program at LBCC. It's designed to give you a taste of real life experience working in the field. And I am one of your friendly librarians here at Long Beach City College. Donna Harris is my name. And Professor Colin Williams, whom you just heard from, is the coordinator of our Library Technology program. And we're so glad that our other professors have joined us as well. Our focus today is on issues of equity and diversity in the workplace, leveling the playing field and including everybody. To help us out, we're joined by our special guests, the board members of Diversity in Academic Libraries, or DIAL for short. We hope you'll enjoy this event and find it helpful in your professional life going forward. But first, we want to talk about our library technology program and also how Long Beach City College addresses the issues of equity and diversity. So now I'd like to hand it back to Colin to give you the details on our technology program.
Cool. Thanks, Donna. So is everyone seeing the full screen of the presentation?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Sorry that I didn't have this up, but here's kind of Donna was introducing the agenda for what we're going to be going over today. And, a couple of the students on the RSVP wanted to know a bit about the technician program. You'll hear us say technician, technology. When we use both of those terms, we're referring to the same program here at Long Beach City College. Sometimes it's more advantageous to say technology because it helps to differentiate. But library technician technology, we'll be able to share this PowerPoint so that you can follow along and look at links that we discussed. So you'll see that when I reference something, there's links down here at the beginnings of that section. So for this area, I'm just going to be introducing you, if you don't know this already, to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. It's a .gov website. It can go through, I'm going to open up people so I can see people in case I see a hand up. But Bureau of Labor Statistics is a great area. It's a great government resource that folks like you, students and people who are looking for jobs can use. So you can drill down to very specific jobs like library technicians and library assistants. It gives great information about pay. It lets you know what people in those positions typically do. So what we're looking at here are like the duties that library technicians go over. So ideally, a lot of this is what we should be learning in class. And then I like the Bureau of Labor Statistics because it goes into different libraries and different settings that you can work in. So right now, we kind of have to figure out what librarians or what library technicians are we talking to. So tonight we're getting a good perspective from librarians who come from the academic realm. So it's the California Association of Research Libraries is the big organization. And the DIAL folks, the Diversity and Inclusion in Academic Libraries interest group is part of that. So you'll notice that on the bios for the board members, a lot of them are from academic libraries. So we'll be hearing about perspectives from the academic realm. Also from public libraries. I know a lot of us have experience in public libraries. And then there's also other areas for us to work at. Our newest course, Library 250, Introduction to Youth Services, that's really geared towards helping youth in public libraries and also school libraries as technicians there. BLS is the Bureau of Labor Statistics. It also gives pretty good information. Like I said, you can drill down and figure out where is growth in the nation, where is growth in different sectors. And yeah, I'm just posting a couple of these slides to let you know that it's really interesting. It lets you see exactly what different folks are doing and what different libraries might expect of library technicians. And of course, they also give, you're already here, you've taken the first step, you're working towards your education to become a library technician. But they do point you to, I call it the mothership of the library world, the American Library Association. They do point you to that association, and they do a great job of listing out areas where you can learn to become a library technician. And then if you're also interested in earning a master's degree to become a librarian, they have information at the ALA as well. So Donna, if you can just give me a couple more minutes, I'll just show students here a couple of resources that we've put together so that you can connect. And, you know, the dial folks, if you want to connect with us on like our LinkedIn, I'll get to that in a couple slides. You're more than welcome to there. So what I wanted to just show the library technicians is that we've been able to create kind of like a digital homeroom. We were online pre-COVID. So we had to figure out, you know, how do we create a sense of community among our students in the online world? One of the ways that we've done that is we've created this Canvas shell where if you enroll into a library technician class or declare the major, you're enrolled into this homeroom with everyone else. So this is where, if you haven't explored this space already, just log into Canvas and feel free to do so, because it gives pretty good information. How do you declare the major? How do you get ready for graduation? If you're transferring units or classes, we walk you through that process. And it's a great place to see what are different areas for engaging with the library community on our discussion board. Are there any jobs that are open? Definitely check it out and feel free to engage with your peers across that platform. The webpage for the library is on lbcc.edu, and the webpage for the technician program is also on the lbcc.edu domain. So you can get to it through Google. There's nothing wrong with that. That's how I do it every day. I don't have it bookmarked. But you'll see that there's a couple of things you can look at. We have the course offerings listed out. So if you're new to the program, you're able to kind of map out when you should be taking those courses. You can see the descriptions of them. And I also wanted to point out that there's a lot of different options for you. I think there's like 5 different versions of the certificate, including non-credit certificates, which are tuition free, non-transcriptable. But there are options like that. If you don't necessarily need to have this be transcripted and GPA, you just need to show a certificate to an employer or to enhance your job skills. Those non-credit certificates are an option. So I encourage you to take a look at this. And again, the direct links to all of this are going to be at the beginning of the section, including the link to a LinkedIn page group community that we started on LinkedIn. It's been alive for about a year or so. I think there's maybe a dozen or more people on there. We're trying to post regularly. We post things to here that the intention is to bring in advisory members. Every year we have an advisory group. So this might actually be a good extension to ask the Dial folks if you'd be interested in taking a look at this, because we're trying to create kind of a local area, Southern California, folks who are graduating or have just graduated with this, to help expand their network through that way, and maybe give a forum to discuss things that are going on in the library world. So like I said, direct links to all of those resources will be in the PowerPoint. And if you want, I can put them in the chat. And then, you know, finally, Career Coach. This is a service that we have at Long Beach City College. If you need help building resumes, if you need help searching for jobs, Career Coach is something that LBCC subscribes to, and it's a really good service because it helps you kind of keep your job searching and resume building within the realm of LBCC, and it also helps to apply for jobs that it thinks might be relevant, connected to the certificates that you're graduating with. So Career Coach, again, for those of us who are looking at jobs or for expanding our skill sets out into the industry. I'm gonna take a pause on this and move and then hand it back to Donna. Is that okay?
If you're through, but please take as much time as you like. I mean,
okay,
this is
well, why
great
don't
for
I just
people to know.
Okay, why don't I just I forgot I built all this into the PowerPoint, so I'm
No, it's
pleasantly
great.
surprising myself. So let me just open it up to folks. You know, do you have any questions, or are you excited to be here, or how was that? Was it helpful or anything of that nature?
Just unmute yourselves and speak up.
Super helpful. Thank you.
Great, great.
Thanks for the LinkedIn group.
Cool.
Yeah, the LinkedIn group's great.
Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and share that out with. I'll share some things out through the chat so you can explore those as you go, because I know you can't click on the links in the PowerPoint. Let me erase this. I don't like that. And then I'm gonna go ahead and open it up again. So this section here, I just wanted to, this is something new / not new that we're doing at Long Beach City College with the technician program. So ALA again stands for American Library Association. It's like the national mothership that is kind of like the guiding voice and the policy advocate at the national level for libraries. They have this thing called the Library Support Staff Certificate. So basically the idea behind this is ALA, if you tell them that you have met their criteria, they will give you a certificate that is nationally recognized to show that you've mastered certain competencies that are associated with the duties and philosophies of being a library technician. Pretty cool, right? So one of the things that we're doing at LBCC is we're aligning our courses to these competencies. So you'll see that I've kind of blown up the required and the electives, and I've shown that the required competencies that you have to take include foundations of library services, communications and teamwork, and technology. So if you're thinking about applying for this support staff certificate, I've highlighted what required competencies and elective competencies you can get through LBCC right now. So right now, I don't have to go into it in detail, but for instance, Library 200 meets the foundations competency. Library 230 meets the communications and teamwork competency. So if you were to complete the certificate here at LBCC, you will also have completed all of the competencies for that support staff certificate through ALA. Now, it does cost money to apply to ALA to get that certificate, but what we're doing is we're applying for grant money so that we can pay that fee for you. So if we get that and you've recently graduated or you're planning on graduating, we should be able to hook you up with a grant that might subsidize payments for that. So this is something to keep in mind too, something to put in your back pocket that shows you've definitely mastered these competencies, and you can take it to different libraries, and it might be something that just bumps your resume up a little bit higher in the stack. I'll come back to that, Donna, and I will hand it over to you to talk about equity and diversity at LBCC. How does that sound?
Okay, that sounds good. And if I might take just a moment, I'd like to give a few short insights from my experience in the field, which has been vast and varied, actually. I got my library master's degree years ago. Oh, well, heck, why be self-conscious about it? I'm not here trying to hide my age to get a date. I have been in the field for 49 years, which is almost half a century. I am vying with Queen Elizabeth for longevity. Over my career, I have worked in every type of library situation: academic, school, special, public, archives, library systems, state library, and I've done nearly every function within the library: reference administration, planning, programming, project management, branch management, special events, public relations. Most of my work has been with the public, in public interfacing, but I've done a little bit of cataloging and almost too little circulation to even mention. And being of a restless nature, I've also had other careers along the way, including public information officer for a city and museum manager, textbook salesman, census taker during the Great Recession of 2008. But every time I went off and did something else, tried something new, my library training and skills stood me in good stead, and I was quite easily able to find a library job when I wanted one. That's one of the beauties of a career in library science, is it's flexible and there are so many options. Before I was a librarian, I was an English teacher. I loved the field, but the workload was crushing me. And I had 5 classes a day with 40 students in a class. Talk about papers to correct. But when I entered library school in short order, I realized I wasn't in Kansas anymore. Instead of animated discussions about the great ideas of literature, my classmates were interested in dull, dry minutia on the outside rather than the inside of books. It was a stereotypic time of introverts and buns in pencils in buns that you always hear about. I wondered if I'd made a huge mistake, really. But the field has changed and evolved over all those years, and so have the people who enter it, and so have I. And now it's a perfect fit for me. I'm so glad I'm in library science. It's become dynamic and exciting, and all kinds of innovations are happening. Nothing runs without information. This is the information age, and we are right in the center of it. We slice it, we dice it, we organize it, we control it, we own it. And so it's a great career, and it ages with you. You do not age out of it. The more information you learn, the more experience you have, the more valuable you are. So I hope you enjoy your experiences in library science. And later on, when we're in questions, if you have any questions about any of those areas, I'll be glad to address them for you. Our topic today is equity and diversity. And here at Long Beach City College, we take that very seriously. You probably have received the nonstop emails announcing lectures, panels, films and events, fundraisers, and what have you, aimed at leaving no segment of our student population underserved. The college publicly releases formal statements of support for all of our students to let everyone know that we stand behind them all, no matter what stripe or what flavor. Months-long themed events we have for Black Heritage, Latinx Heritage, Women's Month. There's always something going on. And we have special task forces and groups, special issue focus groups such as Justice Scholars for the previously incarcerated, Asian Pacific Islander DESI Library Resource Work Group, Black Lives Matter Library Resource Work Group, Latinx Resource Group, and faculty and staff receive anti-racist, sexual harassment prevention, and LGBTQ safe zone and ally training, as well as, how to avoid shooters. I mean, we're always being trained in something for the benefit of our students. And finally, the universal inequity that cuts across all lines, finances. Long Beach City College addresses food and housing insecurity in a variety of ways, including our basic needs program, the Viking Vault Food Pantry, and funds raised by Long Beach City College Foundation to help homeless students. Academic inequities are met in such ways as no-cost tools for students, like free Chromebooks and reserved textbooks, and open educational resource textbooks, which are free, no cost to the student. And the latest good news is that our new PCC parking structure offers free Wi-Fi to students. You can drive up in your car, pop out your laptop or Chromebook, and get on to free Wi-Fi from the college. So that's how we look at it at Long Beach City College. Generous attention is paid to hearts, minds, and bodies to try and get equity and diversity on the campus. But now we move to the sometimes harsh reality of true life experience in the working world. And this is where we're pleased to welcome the executive board members of DIAL, Diversity in Academic Libraries. And as Colin already explained to you, it is a special interest group of California Academic and Research Libraries, a professional association of librarians, in this case in higher education. And after introducing each of themselves, our panelists will share with us what they've actually experienced on the job. And this will be followed with a Q&A session where you can learn more and learn how to become involved in professional associations. So let's start with you, Rahim. You're the chair of DIAL. And if you could tell us about your position on DIAL board and where you work.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Rahim Eskridge. I'm the chair of DIAL. I'm the outreach and, gosh, what am I? My title changes so often. I'm the public services and outreach librarian at Cal State Channel Islands in Camarillo, California.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And our next person will be the chair-elect, and I will let you pronounce your name for me.
That's okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Ediama Onwuchekwa.
All right.
Spelled as pronounced, Onwuchekwa. I am the equity, so I am the equity.
Go ahead, you're fine.
And one of the things I love to say about myself as a librarian, I love to engage and work with students, especially underserved and disproportionately impacted students.
Thank you. And Wendy, our secretary, would you like to tell us about yourself?
Sorry, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm having some computer problems here. So I'm Wendy McMullen. I'm the secretary for DIAL. I work at McHenry Library at the University of California, Santa Cruz. I've been here 23 years, so I've worn many hats. Right now, or I usually manage the collections, and we have 1.5 million books. So, and I am involved in training student workers as well. So that's kind of just a part of what I do.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And we move on to the program chair, Nicolette.
Okay. Hi, my name's Nicolette.
There you are.
Yeah, that always happens. It was going to happen, bound to happen once today. My name's Nicolette Brandt, and I'm the programs chair for DIAL. I am the librarian for business and economics at Cal State University, Long Beach. And this is my first actual professional kind of job within librarianship, so I'm pretty new to the field. I've been in the field for about 1.5 years now. So I'm not too far away from where you all are right now.
Thank you, Nicolette. And finally, we have Alexis, our webmaster.
Hi, I'm Alexis Pavinik. I'm the webmaster for DIAL, and I have been a librarian for about 12 years. Previous to that, I was an English teacher, much like Donna. I taught composition and other English classes at the college level for about almost 20 years. And I am the librarian for English, comparative world lit and classics at Cal State Long Beach, along with Nicolette.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And again, welcome. We are so pleased to have your expertise here with us. We have received some questions from students in advance, so I did share those with Alexis, and I hope you've all seen them. But I'd like to invite the students too, if you have anything that's occurred to you or that you would like to have them address, please put it in the chat box, and they'll be glad to do it. So now let's start out, and we can just continue in the same direction, starting with Rahim, but maybe you could talk about your career background, how you got where you are today, and any issues or problems involving inequity or prejudice that you might have encountered, and how you dealt with it.
Absolutely. So me and Nicolette are in the same boat. We're both junior librarians. But we're doing big work in librarianship. I've been a librarian for 1.5 years, or almost 2 years, something like that. And prior to being a librarian, I was like a lifelong student, right? So I never wanted to leave the academy. I was always taking some sort of class, largely because I didn't want to pay back those student loans, because they are many and they are adding up. But I knew that I wanted to be involved in some way with the learning process. It was either I was going to be a professor at the college level, or I was going to be an administrator or something. I just wanted to be part of the process of getting people into academia, getting people, I thought that was the pathway ahead, right? The more knowledge that you have, the better. And it certainly, that hasn't changed. The more knowledge, the better. But I don't believe that it has to be through, a degree. There are many pathways to information, many pathways to many professions that don't require a degree. Unfortunately, librarianship is one of those, and that's one of the inequity issues that might come up at some point. But after a while, I was like, oh, okay. Librarianship is cool. I have many library friends, and they were like, you should consider. And I was like, $20,000 more of debt? Sure, why not? So I went for it and got my degree, and then immediately got very, very lucky and got a job right out of library school. And that's where I am still to this day. And so far, so good. They haven't,
Question, where did you go to library school?
San Jose State. Yeah, excellent program. If there are any questions about that. In the immediate area, I believe your choices will be UCLA or San Jose. If you don't want to leave your house like me, San Jose is probably the way to go. But all library school is good library school. So hopefully, fingers crossed. So yeah, thank you.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions at this point for Rahim that have occurred to them?
I do.
Great.
So hi.
Would you introduce yourself, please?
That's exactly what I was about to. Hi. My name's Bishop Clark. I am a second semester senior at Virginia Commonwealth University over here on the East Coast. I am looking into getting into library school myself, so I'm currently trying to get a more complete picture of what that actually looks like in practice. So my question for Rahim is, you mentioned that you got lucky when it comes to your current position. What exactly does that look like in terms of things that happened in the real world?
Yes,
Good question.
Fantastic question. Literally the best question that you could ask. So librarianship, not gonna lie to you, heavily impacted. There are so many MLISs out there, and so few places to use them in librarianship as a librarian. So many of us, straight out of library school might take on other jobs. We might go the lib tech route because a position happens to be available. There are kind of horror stories of people who have MLISs and are pages, right? That sort of thing happens because people need jobs and they want to build their resume, and they want to be working in libraries because that's what they're passionate about, and that's the only thing that's available at the moment. So sometimes it does come down to, you just happen to hear about a job at the exact right time, and it happened to be close to you if you aren't able to relocate or don't want to relocate, and you go for it and you luck out. But for many of us, particularly those of us in the LA area or greater LA area, Long Beach has kind of its own system. I'm in the Valley. I'm in the San Fernando Valley. So for me, it's the LA Public Library and the LA County Library are the major systems, right? So if you don't get in those two, your options are limited. It'll be, you maybe try to get in at Burbank or Glendale or one of those like smaller systems. But when you're in a library position, you find that people don't tend to move around too much. Once they're there, they're there. And they either have to, and I mean this very respectfully, they either have to die or or they retire. And those are typically the ways that opportunity opens up. The profession is not the best funded thing out there in the world, so you're not going to see too many superfluous positions, right? There are some industries where there are a lot of people and you're like, did it need to be this many people in at once? Libraries are not that. There's always going to be a moment where you're like, darn, there could be one more librarian here, and that's never going to happen.
So Raheem and Bishop, thanks for your question. I think that's a great answer. I just wanted to also point out that there's a question in the chat. So do you mind if I read that out?
Certainly. Is that for me or is that for the whole Dial team?
We can open it up to the whole Dial team. It's with learning some technologies such as Python or other software make you stand out to employers.
I'm going to pick that up just because I put an answer in the chat.
Okay.
The answer is yes. It slides you along a different path from librarianship, because a lot about what we think about librarianship is about customer service. But when you start to learn programming and you start to live the back end of how services work, you get removed from the customer, you get removed from the patron. So library technical school, library technical programs can set you up for further learning in programming, in software. How do these catalogs work? How do the databases work? And how do you facilitate them? It's an avenue that parallels librarianship, but has its own field entirely. And if you really enjoy programming, programmers make a lot of money, and it is the future. And it's not just Python, it could be any variety of programming software, which you would get more knowledge of. If you went into one, like if you went into Python, you'd learn about the other softwares and other programmings. Absolutely. So yes, it's a great avenue. Especially if you like cataloging, because they're parallel too.
I want to follow up on that, Alexis, if I can.
You please do.
Because it brings up, before we started recording, and before many of you arrived in the room, I was talking about the horror story that was my day. Our databases were down, and we were having an easy proxy error. So for those who don't know, it's kind of hard to explain, but there is a intermediary kind of service or software that's used. So some of you may be familiar with Alma, or you might have heard the word Primo, or if you're interested in public librarianship, I believe they use Circe Dynex. I think that's the one.
It's one of the ones they use. Some of them are moving over now.
Okay. So that basically connects all of these vendors, right? Because that's where the databases come from. There are a bunch of vendors that have the databases and have the information in them. And it basically links them to one place where we can then use something like OneSearch or whatever your institution uses to find whatever articles or information is in the databases that aren't related to one another. Ours was down. So that meant that no one was able to get into any of the databases. And I'm on the reference desk covering for a coworker. And I'm like putting out small fires everywhere because you have students that are like, oh no, my paper's due in 2 hours and the databases are down. What am I gonna do? And the best I can say is, I'll take your email address and let you know when the databases are back up, because I'm not a programmer, right? So I don't know how to go into the back end and troubleshoot, the issues that are going on to make it work. All I know is it doesn't work and somebody needs to fix it, and that somebody isn't me. So if you do have those skills in coding and you do have those programmer skills, a library programmer position might be an excellent option for you. It pays really well. You don't so much work with the public, like Alexis said, but you do have a skill set that a lot of librarians don't have because we don't often learn coding. Many of us have no idea, like all of that looks like chicken scratch to us. I can't understand it. I took a coding class. I passed it, don't remember a drop of it, and that's okay because that's somebody else's job. But it would really make you stand out. Even if you came in as a librarian, you wouldn't be expected to do back-end stuff unless that's what your contract says. But just having that knowledge so you could be able to communicate to the programmer, hey, this is what's going on. Are you able to fix that? Do you need a second? Can I, look over it with you, or whatever the case may be? All expertise is a benefit.
May I ask, could we, since our focus tonight is on equity and diversity, I'd like to kind of steer it a little more in that direction. And oh my gosh, my computer's running out of juice. Excuse me, I will walk over to my charger. I'd like to steer it a little more in that direction and let another person tell us about their, their experience. Let's see, who's our next? Oh, excuse
I think
me.
Ediama is next.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very
Yes.
much. Would you please tell us about your career and how you got there and any experiences you might have had, that could reflect disparities in equity?
Yes, can everyone hear me? So thank you. Well, I'll just start by saying, I sometimes introduce myself as a traveling librarian because I've had different library experiences, and I've had my library school experiences in different places. So I had my first degree in Africa, West Africa precisely, and I had my second degree in another part of West Africa. So I had my first degree in Nigeria, I had a second one, have a third one in South Africa. And so I would say that I've had different library experiences, and I have worked as a librarian in different parts of the world. So I have worked as a librarian in London and Israel and a couple of places. And I'm not just sharing this to talk about myself, but to speak from the perspective of diversity and having worked with different librarians and seen different places. And so who knows if one of us seated on one of the faces on the screen would want to be sometime veered towards Europe to be a practicing librarian. Speaking about my experiences, I would say one of the things that's constant with the library world and a practicing librarian. Sorry, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, one of the things that's that's constant is the fact that from my library experiences, we tend to share similar things in terms of curriculum, right? So I have been the member of the International Federation of Library Education, which is more like an association that binds all librarians over the world. And in my practice, I have never felt a difference in working in these different places. So cataloging and literally a lot of things are basically the same. But in terms of diversity and speaking from an equity perspective, I think one of the things that stands out would be the issue of stereotypes, right? Stereotyping librarians. So we've had a history of this is the way librarians are, right? And this is the way librarians should be. And this librarian should be this way. And if you're in the library school and you've been at one spot, you may tend to be stereotyped. So I've had circumstances and instances where I worked in, I've introduced myself as a librarian, and someone takes a look at me at the second time. Did you say you're a librarian? And, speaking about appearance, sometimes people feel librarians should be quiet and wearing dull colors and flat shoes, right? And you walk into a space and you're not considered a librarian. So I know this might not be equity, but those are some of the things that are outstanding. And also speaking from another perspective, as a person of color, you'll be in spaces where, as a practicing librarian, I've had to reach out to students and they turn around and they really don't think I am educated enough to help them with the research. So
there's an interesting perception.
Yes, so, and this happened it's happened in my role as up to a student and said, can I help? I'm a librarian. And And I get this look, no, I'm not sure you know what I'm talking about. And a lot of times I pull out my ID and I said, well, I'm a doctor and professor of this. And they're like, no, I don't think so. So I've had different experiences being a person of color and also in different parts of the world working as a librarian. I'm not sure how much time we have, but I'll pause here. So
Well, you
others can
have
share
got
their
a
experience.
wealth of experience to share with us. And I'm just wondering myself, do you find, how do you find equity and diversity, our topic, in the various parts of the world that you've worked in? Do you find, do you find it less, more accepting in some areas, or could you speak a little bit to that?
Well, I'll speak from the present to the past. Speaking
Okay.
as equity and engagement librarian in Mesa College, I would say that the concept and the theme of equity, it's diverse. It wears different hearts in different spaces.
Yes.
So, I'm saying that because the concept of equity and engagement, sorry, did I say engagement? I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Diversity and equity in America it's in a space, if you talk about equity in a space like Africa, we're not going to be emphasizing people being microaggressed from their color or from their color. It might be from a different perspective. It might be from an intellectual perspective. But here we deal with different spaces and different parts of diversity in terms of being a person of color, a student who's a person of color, a student who's being microaggressed in this space, and maybe another student who is from an underserved population and doesn't feel the student is getting all the necessary attention just because of the space that the student is at the time. I'm not sure did I respond to the question?
Yes, I'm wondering if anyone else has a question that they'd like to address, because I think your breadth of experience is fascinating. I mean, you've probably seen it all, Let me ask you, what the heck? I'm so sorry. Where would you say you have found it most comfortable to work? In what part of the world, or any of your positions? And actually, what kind of positions have you had? We're talking a little bit about our career trajectory and how we got there.
Okay, well, I guess you have a twofold question.
That was
so I'll
twofold,
take the first one as, yes.
Yeah, what have you done, and what did you like best? Oh, we've got a little glitch here.
Okay, so I have worked more as an academic librarian. Can you hear me now?
Yes, there's a little bit of stall, but you're back with us.
Okay, I could change. So I'm trying the two of me. So if you cannot hear me, I could switch over to the other me. But because I like for everyone to hear me, so I could do this quickly and see.
We like to hear you as well.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So that's the other me. So, well, I have worked as an academic librarian. More so I've worked in academic libraries. I worked in university libraries, and I'm now working in a college library. But I have also worked as a public librarian in the public library. Mm-hmm. And I guess I would say it's not been easy in any of those spaces, basically because like I said, they come in different perspectives. But what I would say specifically, I enjoy what I do right now in San Diego Mesa College, not because I'm presently there, but because there's the interest and there's the attention towards addressing issues around equity and then diversity. So I got in my role as an equity librarian because Mesa College intentionally decided to address issues of equity and diversity in the college, and they're open to looking into systems and looking into issues that are more like a problem to helping students achieve this success. Did I respond to your question?
Yes, thank you very much. I will move us on to Wendy, and then we'll go through everybody, so everybody has a chance to tell us about their career trajectory and their experiences, and then we can go on and go into more questions if we wish. So Wendy, would you like to tell us how you got where you are and what your experiences have been?
Yeah. So I wrote down a lot of things because I did read your questions, and so I wrote down some answers so that I don't take up too much time and other people can talk. So I I didn't start. I'm a first generation student. I didn't start college till I was 30 years old, and so I'll just tell you this. I got my MLIS in 2011 at 48 years old.
Good for
So,
you.
so what I'm trying to say to anybody here that might be a single mother, like I have 3 children who are all grown now, and I worked at McHenry Library and I went to school, and I don't think you should do all of those things at once. Please don't do it because I almost had a nervous breakdown. But I will say that it was a long crawl to get my degree, and sadly, it could be, I don't know if it's a UC thing, but sadly, I didn't get, when I got the degree, I did not get a promotion and I didn't get a raise. So I just want to tell you that it doesn't guarantee anything. Let's see, I'm just trying to look at my other things. Did I write anything? I just wanted to make sure that because I did try to really make pointed answers to this.
Sure.
Well, I love what you guys are doing there, by the way. I am really excited about that program you have because I almost wonder if that was available to me if I would have done that because like Raheem, I had a lot of student debt. And I really I'm not sure I make enough money to have said, yeah, go into the library program. But also it was harder in some ways for me to move around because I always had to worry about my kids. So I couldn't take really high level responsibility in the library, but I still love what I'm doing. And you also said something about the diversity issue. So I am feeling hopefully optimistic about the diversity at UCSC or McHenry Library and Science and Engineering Library. I'm feeling hopeful, and I'll tell you this though. You may not already know, but 88% of librarians are white, and that is not acceptable. We all can agree on that. Our library has finally implemented a EDIJ committee, which makes
And could you tell us what that means? EDIJ?
Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, and Justice
Okay.
Committee. You know, I hope I don't offend anybody who is a baby boomer besides me, but I'm noticing as these white baby boomer people like me are leaving and retiring, there's this really great, fresh, exciting new diverse librarians or just staff that are really talented coming in. And it is really exciting to see because the thing is, I have also watched UCSC the campus body grow enormously diverse. And that's exciting because it was disturbing. Our population years ago was mainly white and anyway, so what I'm excited about is it would be nice if we had more, so students coming in, they see someone at the front desk that looks like them, right? I just think we need that. Of course, it's obvious. And after all these years that I've worked there, I do want to say that I am optimistic about things getting better. And I also think a lot of you don't underestimate yourselves, okay? Because I know there's a lot of competition sometimes in the library, a lot in the library field, but don't underestimate yourself because there are a bunch of my colleagues that do not have masters like me, and they make twice as much as me. And I think the program that you guys are having there is really inspiring. I hope you don't get upset when I say that. Also, there's a 6-month certificate through Google, and they help you find a job too, but it kind of seems somewhat similar to some tech degrees, not completely, but I've been just reading it out of curiosity. So I just wanted to add that in there too, in case you can combine a couple of different programs.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, and I do want to say, you guys, I mean, I love being a librarian, and get a master's if you want, but you don't have to have a master's to make some decent money in a library. And it may take you a while, but I can honestly say from my own life experience that life, we want it to be all like figured out, and all we have to do is get a degree and the world's going to open up. And that doesn't always happen. But if you're passionate about this work, don't let that impede you. And that's, I'm going to stop there.
Well, thank you. That's very inspiring what you've shared with us. And I love that you went later. Remember when I told you that I was afraid I'd made a mistake? Well, my library professors said you can do a sociologically based master's thesis. So I did one. It was called Job Satisfaction Amongst Librarians. And I interviewed 30 public librarians in the Minneapolis Hennepin Public Library District. And most librarians at that time did not, librarianship, even like for me, was a second career. It wasn't a first career. But I'm finding more and more people. Matter of fact, I didn't even know librarianship was a career until I stumbled on this person reading in the school library when I took my English students down there to get some books. And I'm finding more and more people are selecting it right out of the box, like starting now, and taking tech degrees and things. But you are very inspiring that you started later in life and hung on and did it. Thank you. Okay, our next person will be Nicolette, our program chair. Would you like to tell us your experiences?
Hi, everybody. So let's see. I got my MLIS from UCLA. I graduated in 2019, so not too long ago. I think that in the chat, Alexis, you mentioned that they have like they do have like a more tech, I guess, geared kind of program. UCLA is gravitating towards what's called an iSchool. So they're like no longer like a library school, it's an iSchool. So it's very information orientated, I guess. So when I was there, most of our classes were about like AI and like system infrastructure and things like that. I went to library school for archives, for archival science. That was my track. But I got an internship or a graduate student job within a library on campus for 2 years. And that kind of is what led me on this path to academic librarianship. I had amazing mentors. So that's something that I would definitely, I feel like for me, I'm going to kind of like Rahim, for me, I feel like I was just lucky. I kind of just like kept having these opportunities that kind of led me in this path. But if it wasn't this path, then it would be another path, but one thing that has really helped me through are the amazing mentors that I have had. So I would definitely seek out mentorship where you can, because that's invaluable.
Could you share with us a little bit how you did seek out your mentors and make the connection and get them to accept you?
Yeah, see, that's the part where I feel like I got lucky, is because I kind of just got this random job. I got maybe 8 jobs when I was at UCLA. I worked at an art museum. I worked in the library. I worked at HBO. I worked at NBC. I had a lot of jobs. So one of those jobs, I was at the library, and they were the 2 people that were running the program that I was part of, the graduate student assistant program, which was reference orientated. So we did reference, we just sat on the reference desk. The 2 people that were running that program, I developed a relationship, and they became my mentors. But what I would say is that if you're going to go into an MLIS program like at UCLA, surprisingly, UCLA is has one of the only MLIS programs in California, but the library and the program are not connected. So
Right.
the program and the librarians in the library they never talk to each other. There's no communication. So if you want to seek those mentorships and you really want to go into academic librarianship, don't assume that just because you're a part of the program, they're going to connect you to the librarians in the library. That's something that you're going to have to kind of advocate for yourself. Go into the library, try to find a position in an academic library when you're a student, because pretty much everyone that I've worked with in the library at UCLA, that's where they found their mentors, in those internships, not necessarily through the program. So I would definitely say that like I just said, I had a lot of different, so I didn't know what I wanted. I wasn't like, I'm set on being an academic librarian. I entered at NBC, at HBO, at an advertising agency, at an art museum, all while I was in my MLIS program. So I would say that so this is kind of another barrier, is that I didn't have the opportunity, I didn't have the, privilege of taking an internship that wasn't paid. And a lot of, internships, maybe at the Getty or something like that, those prestigious internships are unpaid. So that's something that you're going to kind of have to navigate and watch out for. Finding a paid internship, it is competitive to find a paid internship because there's not many of them. So what I did was I went to conferences when I was a student, and I met people at those conferences, and those people got me internships. So you really have to be out there, or my strategy was to be out there kind of networking. And through that, I found a lot of library adjacent things like digital asset management, user experience design, information architecture. So there are a lot of things that are close to librarianship, but aren't necessarily librarianship. And those are when those kind of tech skills are going to come into really be important for you. Most of my peers that I graduated with don't work in academic librarianships. Most of them have stayed in Los Angeles, but they work at Disney. They work within the entertainment industry doing metadata. Or I have a friend working at the LA Times doing metadata. So there's a lot of metadata jobs out there, like Alexis said in one of her chats, a lot of metadata jobs. I think that also as a person of color, I'm drawn to DEI work, right? But a lot of that work does not equate to raises or to promotion. A lot of that work is invisible labor. And so one of the best pieces of advice that I got from someone was that if you're going to go into librarianship, don't make I love doing DEI work, but what I focus on is finding a specialty that's not DEI work. Find something that you're really good in. That doesn't involve just your, your identity, something that you're just good at, that people are going to appreciate. So, or that's going to be a skill that's going to be valuable to people, right? Because DEI work oftentimes is, it's rewarding, but it doesn't, sometimes it's empty. Sometimes it goes overlooked. So that's what I'll say about that too. Library school, in my experience, is also really, I think I was one of 3 people of color within my program. So there are also a lot of, a lot of things that you experience within library school. I feel like I'm being so negative, but it was wonderful. And now I have a wonderful position. You just really have to be strategic. Definitely. You have to be strategic, and you have to find mentors, really good mentors, and find internships. And
one of the undertones to your commentary that you may not even realize is she didn't get these things by sitting home and thinking about it. You sound like a real hustler. I mean, the different types of jobs that you had, all those different varieties. I mean, it takes energy and, like you say, strategy possibly, and some real initiative to go after those things. So let that be a lesson and a good example.
It does, but I'm not gonna lie, like a lot of my motivation is that I had to pay rent and feed myself. So I went out there and tried to find, as many jobs as I could. It was really overwhelming at times and stuff, but I made it work. So
You made one comment about now DI, that's diversity and inclusion. Is that what that stands for?
yeah, DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Okay. Oh, DEI, you were saying. Okay. You were saying that just go after something you like. Well, do you think that something you like would be tinged with, inclusion issues, or, not wanting to let you into that particular field or whatever, that particular job? Have you experienced that or noticed that?
Sure, but not in librarianship.
Oh,
I would say that within the corporate world,
oh,
from my experience, equity work can still go under the rug or be overlooked, but a lot of people within the corporate world are like trying to like really I don't know, find ways to incorporate diversity more and like actually pay you money for doing that work. But in librarianship, you're not going to be paid money for doing diversity, equity, and inclusion work.
Thank you. Wow, you really had a storehouse, a treasure house for us of information and help and experience to share. And finally, Alexis, would you like to give us your royal road to success?
Hey, Donna and Alexis, before we dive into you, I just wanted to acknowledge Raheem. He rose his hand a couple of times. So I think,
Oh, I'm so
Raheem,
sorry.
I
I
just wanted to
didn't
hand it
It's
over to
okay.
you.
The hand blends
No, it's
in
fine.
with the little blurriness back there. No, Nicolette said so much, and I was like, because me and Nicolette's experience is so similar, I was like, you're really speaking to my soul. But we had kind of opposite experiences. Where Nicolette says, and rightfully so, I don't disagree with this, probably don't put your emphasis and focus in the DEI work as part of your as your librarianship. That's what I did. My entire librarianship experience was DEI work. Through the iSchool at SJSU, you can completely tailor your experience, right? You don't have to take a class on cataloging if you don't want to. It's not required. So you can go your entire experience not knowing how to catalog, get into the job market, and now you're like, what is Dewey? I don't know. That's realistic. So mine was tailored around justice, access, equity, those sorts of things, because that's the work that I had been doing for a decade prior. So my mentors on campus were largely from my alma mater, because I was probably the loudest person in the room saying, this isn't right, there's a problem with this, we got to fix that. I wrote my university strategic plan. That was fun. Got a little award for it too. That award didn't translate to anything. I guess a job now, I suppose, because I put it on my CV. I was that person on campus, right? So I knew all the people. I was in all the meetings during undergrad. When I graduated, I was called back to the university a couple times to do lectures and other things like that. So I had built a relationship with those people, but it came through the lens of DEI. That was my main purpose. So when I entered library school and decided I want to focus on this DEI work, diversity, equity, and inclusion work, and I love the justice aspect too, because I actually don't like DEI work. We'll talk about that later. I'm sure we'll circle back to that. I was like, oh wow, this is going to be the change. That's a lie. It's not the change. Don't think that. Again, we're going to come back to it, I'm sure, but I just wanted to talk about that while it was fresh, that parallel in experience and that wisdom from Nicolette. Yeah, don't center because I don't know, it took me a long time to learn what I was actually interested in beyond the DEI work, because that's all I had done. And it was important work to be done, but entering librarianship and being like, yeah, I know what Victorian literature is, but do I like it? I don't know. I haven't really dealt with it much. You know, I was an adult when I found out that, you know, I love golden age science fiction, right? I love Lovecraftian horror. I love, you know, all that weird stuff, but I didn't interact with it until I was an adult, right? And had time to actually sit down, and my bills were mostly paid, and I could, you know, have that leisure time and didn't feel like I had to do this DEI work in order to survive, because it was my bread and butter for so long. And it still kind of is. Hi, I'm the chair of Dial. But yeah, so don't make, if you can avoid it, don't make it your main thing unless you really want it to be your main thing. And this is an area that will burn you out quickly, because a lot of places don't pay for it. So academic libraries do not pay for DEI work. Everyone's kind of expected to just know it and to just do it. And you spent your entire, you know, career in undergrad and your entire master's your entire graduate degree program learning this stuff, executing it in theory, and then you get into the academy and you're stonewalled because you learned that this is a institution and you might be the only one who knows the actual right thing to do, but you have to convince an entire Senate that this is the right change to make, or you have to convince administrators that this is the right change to make, or you have to spend an entire academic year running data and collecting data for something that you already know, just to convince someone to give you the money to do the thing that you needed to do 2 years ago. So thank you, Nicolette, for bringing that up, because I completely would have forgot to mention it. Yeah, don't do that.
And Raheem, did you tell us what your undergraduate institution was?
Yeah, it was the same as where I work now, Channel Islands.
Oh, Channel Islands. Okay, great.
CSU Channel Islands, yeah.
Did,
Which is
did
not
you
on
have
an
anything
island.
else you wanted to add?
Oh, no, that's it.
Oh, okay. Let's see, we'll go to Alexis then.
So it's hard to know where to begin, because when Raheem says, and I came to Victorian studies late, and said, why? Basically sums up
what took
half
you
I
of
so
looked
my
long.
at you when I
academic
said
career.
it.
So I'm just going to sum up. I started out as an anthropologist, and the summary I'm going to tell you is very similar to what everybody has already said. There is I don't know whether it's good or bad, but you have to be ready to be fluid, is the point. These aren't the times in any career where you can get on a train and stay on that train until retirement. Librarianship and any version, any variation of information science is absolutely a window of opportunity that keeps opening if you keep thinking about new ways of imagining it. And you can focus on DEI, the difficult emotional train of an overarching theory to get through the different parts of your career, or you can imagine DEI embedded in everything you do anyway, every day, and then make other choices that make more sense with your family and the way that you have to live your life and how you pay your rent. And I didn't have any of that knowledge and any of that sensibility when I started. I was an anthropologist because my parents didn't understand what it meant. And I thought that was hilarious. I was like, they're like, what is that? I'm like, it's the study of people, Mom, people. And it was a disappointing experience. I was disappointed by it. I felt like people were being objectified, and that I was going to write a book about how I was objectifying people, and I was going to make money off of it, and then be Dr. Pavinik, who objectified these people for her career. Thank you. Couldn't do it. But what do you do with that information, right? I had a bachelor's degree and a master's degree. And I was on a road, and it was hard to think about getting on a new road, but the theory always applies. And that's one thing that we can say in European and American studies. If you do any kind of social theory at all, it will always translate to every other thing that you do, because social theory always applies. So anything you have, any opportunity for social theory, just take it and you'll say, oh, look, I'm thinking about humans in groups, and it'll apply to something else you're doing later in life. And so it was really easy for me to apply that theory to becoming an English major, because I could analyze all these people, but they were dead and nobody cared. It was fine. And then after nearly 20 years of grading essays, much like Donna, it's soul sucking. And my car was constantly filled with piles of paper, and it was impossible to get a tenure track job. And I was a freeway flyer between 3 different colleges here in LA. And then I moved to New York City, and it was the same. And I'm like, I can't do it anymore. But I want to stay in academics, and I want to be a teacher. I want to be helpful. And that's how I got into librarianship, because it was an easy slide, almost like an electric slide into librarianship. And I went to UCLA, and in deference to that degree and the directions they're moving, and the fact that many of us and many of the librarians and people in tech you will meet in the field have gone to UCLA, essentially their program is the anthropology of information. And I was again appalled. And I thought, what is this? This is some high-minded thinking about info. Where does info move? How does it move? And I was like insulted by it, because at the end of the day, what a librarian does, whether you're front facing or in the back, is you're helping people find information to accomplish a goal. There is your equity. Every single person is going to come to you with a different persona, a different identity, a different set of problems, a different set of circumstances. They're going to come at you aggressive. They're going to come at you worried. They're going to come at you defensive. And your job is to say, hey, let me help you get there. And whether you're behind the scenes trying to make it all work smoothly so that people can put in their one keyword like it's all Google, or you're in the front and you're like, hey, I realize you're stressed out. You know, I'm stressed out for you. This is stressful. Let's take a beat and work through this, because it's possible. At every moment you have, that's the work. That's the job. And that appealed to me, because when I was an English teacher, I mean, a number of times, and you all know it, you've all been there, thesis statement. It's like the worst phrase ever, right? Then inevitably somebody's like, what is a thesis statement? And you're like, I don't know, really. I don't want to answer that question. That kind of anxiety that comes in these pressure points. Imagine as a librarian, regardless of your specialty, any environment where you might be a librarian, someone will come up with a question that you have no idea how to answer. And they're just looking at you like, I mean, it says your reference. Can you just fix this? Can you just find this for me? In fact, I need 8 of them, and they need to be peer reviewed. And I only have 15 minutes. So a lot of what librarianship is about customer service. It's about having patience. It's about thinking through the days that you're not up to it and they still need your help, and their rights and their needs in that moment have to be greater than yours every time. And if they're not, then you need to take a break, and you need to go get a cup of tea and, you know, walk away and say, I got to go to the bathroom or whatever it is. And I think that's, you know, my dovetail story to how to think about where you want to move forward in library tech, where you want to move forward in concepts of librarianship, information science, information movement, is, do you want to be part of a group of people who inevitably are trying to support others in finding information they need? and at times processing it. If that's interesting to you and you can tolerate, whether it's the patron or your boss, because inevitably you're going to have a boss, you're going to have a coworker, you're going to have somebody who's like in the way of what you think is right, and you're going to be at heads with each other. If the goal is always to move information forward and to think about fake news and to think about undermining that with process and with dedication to examination, then it's the right field for you. It really is, even in cataloging, because even cataloging has DEI. Cataloging, we've just gone through a whole thing in Dial where the whole question of how things get labeled, who's labeling them, what labels are they using, who can access those labels, what happens if you type in a pejorative term and things come up, how do we see that information on the page? Are those words now going to be hidden? Do they have to be couched in other terms? All of that is part of the conversation today. And it's only going to get more important because when you get companies like Ex Libris, who aren't paying attention, who are coming late to the game, you get problems where librarians work really hard to catalog items with very particular words that are very cautiously created to indicate information. And then the parent company, Ex Libris, will lump those in with author supplied key terms, which are usually not anything we need to see anymore ever. And you have to now, one of our colleagues on Dial had a whole big issue with how do you approach Ex Libris, this huge global company, and say, stop what you're doing. You are ruining the work of librarians, and we are now all using your product. And, you know, they're slowly working to change it, and they aren't advertising their changes. So there's a lot going on that's about diversity, equity. You don't have to be at the front of it. You can be at the front of it, but it's always going to be part of what you do. Even when you're middle class, white, owe a lot of money in student loans, it's part of your life. And I've worked inner city my whole life, and my whole job really has been in trying to get people where they want to be. And if that's what you're interested in, again, whether you're behind the scenes or in the front, this is a trajectory that you can use to get there, to help people. That's what I have to say.
Awesome, Alexis. Thank you so much for sharing. I feel like I should be like applauding. It's so good. I connected with so much of that, but I'm gonna turn to Adiyama. I think you had your hand raised at one point, so I wanted to give you the opportunity to share.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to add quickly. Thank you, Alexis. One of the very important thing I thought to add was the fact that as librarians or aspiring librarians, it is very important to seek to collaborate with other librarians. So we tend to focus on serving the needs of students and working to, we think about equity. But I think what I would say is while we do equity towards students, it's also very important to do it this way with other librarians, kind of like, because I feel the more we connect with librarians and the more we then would serve more students. I say that from a lot of experiences of having jumped. So I've worked in the library here for 2 years, and I went to another library to work for 5 years. Just connecting with librarians and being able to pick my phone and call another librarian in Australia or something has helped me know the best way to help students. And especially because we don't know everything as librarians, right? And I have on my status, I think I have somewhere on my social profile, that librarians do not know everything, but we know where to get everything. So people come in thinking we know everything, but trust me, I'm gonna put that call to Raheem to say, did you hear about this? What is this? And Raheem's gonna say, okay, can you quickly find this? So one of the things I'd like to emphasize is the fact that we need to also connect to serve students better. And I love when Alexis or someone talked about equity. And I just also wanted to add that as librarians, a key role is to get people the information they need. But trust me, when a student comes in and feels and has a library anxiety and is anxious or is worried or feels down, and you're trying to get the student to where the student is, you need to come out of your shell. The days I don't feel like talking, but guess what? I'm on the reference desk that morning and I have to talk, right? So it is looking at the student beyond what the student is. I'm just saying, trying to re-echo two things right now. I have worked with a student and I said, you know what? When next you come to the library, go to the reference desk, and I had a student say, they ain't gonna treat me right. And that broke my heart, because when students don't feel confident walking to the library because they're feeling that they're going to be either microaggressed or not going to be understood, then there's a problem. But in summary, working together, connecting, if I feel I'm not up to par to working with a student that day, then I can connect with Shamika, I can connect with Nicolette and say, hey, you know what? I think you can talk with that student. I've had people say to me, Adela, you have a smiling face this morning. How about you go talk to the student? And I'll hop on it. So we need to connect hands as practicing librarians and future librarians to know that we cannot do this without each other. In terms of knowledge, in terms of working together, we cannot. That's the best way to serve students as librarians. Thank you.
Very well said. And thank
Totally
you for
agree.
adding that. You know, I once was at a service and professionalism training somewhere along in my career, and something that has always stuck with me from that, other seminars I've gone to, a lot of stuff hasn't stuck, but this one is that the burden of professionalism is always on the professional. You are the one who has to stay professional, regardless of how whoever you're serving is behaving. And it's funny, when I'm on the end of receiving service, that pops into my head when someone's not treating me right. The burden of professionalism.
I had a student this semester say, you are the library. And I've heard stuff like that before, but when the student said it, I was like, wow, they really get it. That, you know, it's not the institution, it's not the books on the shelves, it's the person that they're dealing with. And I just love, I love this conversation. I love, Alexis, that you said that you're going to be dealing with lots of different people. And even if you're technical services, or if you're a technical technician in the back and you went back there because you don't like dealing with people, maybe one day you need to cover and you find yourself out on the circulation desk. And it's important to keep philosophies like that as the guideposts, because they're pretty central. I just wanted to share this word cloud that I built from responses from students. Let me see if I can remember how to share a screen. So when we sent out RSVPs for students who are interested in this, we asked them, what are you hoping to get out of this? Can you all see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, and can you all hear my
Yes.
toddler in the background?
Oh.
Sorry, that's just the way it is right now. So yeah, I just wanted to take a couple minutes and see if any of these words spoke to any of the Dial folks. I know that one of them, it was funny, it jumped out to me, and it's also jumping out here as it's the word with the most weight, was applications. And I think that Bishop in the chat asked Nicolette, when you mentioned that it's, I think you didn't say exhausting, but you said it can feel emptying when you're trying to apply equity and diversity strategies to the workplace. I'd like for you guys to talk about that, because it's real. Raheem, you mentioned, you know, the institution, there's a bureaucracy there, you know, there's a system in place, and sometimes it can feel like that, you know, no matter what you say, no matter how loud you are, they're asking for data, or it takes 5 years, or it's in the 6-year program plan. So how can we talk to our students about what it's like to apply this energy and apply DI and social justice to the workplace?
Oh, I'd love to talk about that. Yeah, I'm looking at this word cloud, and understanding right above the ION in application. Understanding comes directly to mind, because that's something that I feel like it's part of your library training, right? One of the things you'll be asked to do in probably your information literacy courses are identifying your biases, knowing what they are, because we all have them, and they don't go away. They just transform if they go anywhere at all. The purpose, the point of recognizing biases isn't so much to say, you know, you're a bad person. This is, you know, an area that you're not good at. It's to say, I recognize that I have this thing, and how do I stop that from impeding my ability to give excellent service? And how do I not let it inform negative decisions or harmful decisions? How do I not let it impede what I view as safety? How do I let it not impact how I create programs and how I keep certain people out of the room, or whatever the case may be? I'll give you an example. So this was very, very early in my career. I was interning for free at an academic library, and I was on the reference desk, and I was shadowing, and a patron who I had seen before. They were a regular. And they may have had some sort of, I think, some sort of neurodivergence going on. They were having a fit. They were not happy, very unsatisfied with whatever it was that they were working on. And they became very loud, very agitated. And the person I was shadowing, their first instinct was, oh, we have to call the police. And I'm like, why? What's the problem? Right? Because there was a sense that this disturbance, right? Like this person who is now causing a scene is in some way dangerous and needs to be dealt with, right? That's not a good approach. That's not how we should lead. The first thing that you should do is go over and talk to the student, right? See what's going on. So I said, you know what? Just hand down on the receiver. I'll go talk to the student. So I walk over and I'm like, hey, what's going on? And the student was very agitated, but, you know, told me what was going on. And I was like, okay, that's no problem. We can fix it. But first, are you thirsty? Would you like some water? I can get you some water. And then we'll sit down and work on it together, right? And the student, you know, was still agitated, but they were like, yeah, I'll take some water. And as time went on, they calmed down and we got them through what they were working on, and it was fine, right? Had it could have gone any number of ways had the police showed up, right? Had they been called. Especially in this climate, especially in this environment, no matter what it is that your view on the police is, on policing and so on and so forth, when we make certain calls, we automatically escalate the situation. Instead of defaulting to our de-escalation training, if you even are provided that at all, a lot of places don't do de-escalation training. A lot of people, their first instinct is, if it's something that looks abnormal, or if it's something I don't want to deal with, or if it's something I'm uncomfortable with, I'm just going to call the police, or I'm going to, you know, whatever the case may be, ask that person to leave or whatever it is. That's not very humanizing. That doesn't recognize that we all come to the library with different baggage. If you're in a public library, that's an environment where you're definitely going to have more interactions with the general public. You may have more increased contact with homeless persons or people who are experiencing housing instability. You may be experiencing or coming into contact with people who have different mental health issues. You may be coming into contact with people who, I'll be quite frank, might not have taken a shower in a long time, or might be sleepy and want to, you know, sleep in or in front of the library or whatever the case may be. And you have to decide what it is that you will and will not tolerate, not from the person, but from your institution and the policies, right? You have to be able to ask very, very pointedly, do you mean to tell me that this person is not able to access the building? Do you mean to tell me this policy is designed so that it's for our safety, but it puts them in jeopardy? Make that make sense for me. You have to be able to, if you want to do the justice work, right? I try not to look at DEI work. I try to, at this point, it's full on course correction. If we want to do the work to make libraries more accessible, to make libraries, to provide better service, we have to be meeting people where they are. So unless someone is a very clear and present danger to you, don't call the police, question your policies, question what's the first response that you have, and ask yourself, is that really the appropriate response? Is that really the right course of action? Because you might lose a library, you might lose a patron forever, you might end up with someone not surviving an interaction, or any number of things, and that's just not something that's worth it. And that's also not the justice work. So there's my little soapbox. Understanding goes a long way, and we have to apply it more.
Thanks, Raheem.
I
I
would
see.
Oh.
Yeah, I saw Wendy, you raised your hand, and then Ediana, I think you raised your hand next. So how about that, Wendy? And go ahead.
You want me to talk or Ediama?
I'm not sure who raised their hand first, but whoever wants.
I don't know either. Ediama, you
Yeah,
go ahead.
it's okay.
Ediama, go ahead.
Oh, no, you can go ahead, Wendy. Well, go ahead. I'll speak after you, please.
Yeah, I have a couple things that first I was going to mention, and now that Raheem brought up the police situation, I did want to say that at all of the UCs, they are doing this really intense evaluation, sending it to every staff, student, faculty about what we want to see with the police and how much involvement. And it sounds like they're really going to do a major overhaul, and it's kind of inspiring to see that they're actually going to do something about these problems. So that's another reason I'm really hopeful, because there's a group of us that meet regularly to talk about anti-racism practice as librarians. And that's one of the things we were focusing on to try to see how we could change the police interactions that we have to deal with in our library as well. And secondly, sorry if this is a little off the topic, but it does have something to do with diversity. One of the things, the group that I kind of started this group called Becoming Better Allies, because it didn't seem like our library was doing anything, and I wanted to do something. So there's a bunch of us that are talking together and then asking the administration to sort of change things based on our brainstorming sessions. And one thing that's helped us know what students need from us is we've signed up for the newsletters from every single student resource center. That's like African American Resource and Cultural Center, American Indian Resource Center, Asian American Pacific Islander, disability, LGBTQ Resource Center. And we started looking at their newsletters that they put out monthly to see to get clues as to what their needs are, so that we can provide better service for them at the front desk. So that's just one kind of technique, I think, to keep your finger on the pulse, so you lose contact with what students actually really want from you, instead of having the administration tell you what they want of you. I really want to hear what the students, the diverse student body, is needing from us as librarians. So I just wanted to only put that out there because it's really helped us know how to be there better for our diverse student body.
And I think Nicolette also has her hand up. Thank you, Wendy, for that very much. And Nicolette also had something to add.
Okay. How about, well, let's go back to.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was there another?
Sure yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Oh, well, I was just going to add that, thank you very much for the opportunity. I was just going to also add that it's the policy is very important. And speaking of calling the police or saying, I think sometimes not picking the phone to call the police or threatening the student is even worse than calling the police. That's because I've had an instance where, can you hear me?
Yes.
Be loud. Okay, so I've had an instance where there was a student who was in the library, and kind of like we all know, sometimes we're not always in the best of our days, and And then the librarian or the person at the desk had no intention to call the cops, but threatening a student and saying, if you do not do this, I'm going to call the cops. I feel that's worse than calling the cops, because guess what? If you call the cops, then then maybe might be something else. But just threatening, I would use the word threatening a student with words. If you do not, or clients, if you do not sit well, or if you do not do this, I'm going to do this. I think it goes a long way to or putting up signages in a library spaces that is in a way a threat, right? So our policies are very important. And when I got into working in my library, I got an overdue notice that I felt was a threat, because if you do not bring these books back in the next 14 days, we're going to contact your supervisor. And I was like, what? Or sometimes they tell you something like, we're going to have to do something about your paycheck. So I think we need to look into our policies intentionally from an equity perspective. And I'm just very briefly, in my role as an equity librarian, I've worked on a project of working with a collection development librarian to look into our collection development policies. Do we have collections that are diverse? Trust me, I'm still working on it. And as I speak, I have goosebumps, because I could spend a long time right now talking about the 1 year work that we did on looking to our library collections. We had titles that students would take a look at. I still have them in my office. And, titles that are very racist and very gender bias. I don't want to name those titles. So we need to intentionally look into spaces as practicing librarians and as potential librarians. Some of these things may not look mean, like telling me if I do not return the book, you're going to report me to my supervisor, but that's worse for me never to check out a book, because who wants to go to a supervisor? So those are some of the things we're intentionally looking in my library spaces, and every day we find things that we need to put away just to have a more welcoming environment. I'm just going to pause because I could go on. It's been something I've been doing for years now. So thank you.
Colin, did you want to proceed?
Oh, sure. I was just reflecting on that. That could be a good way to look at applying this work to your workplace, reviewing policies, reviewing plans, and making sure that the language mission statements that's reflected in them is reflective of, basically the morals that you are bringing to your institution, that you want your institution to play out. Thank you. Nicolette, how about you?
Oh, go ahead, Nicolette, sorry.
Or, yeah, okay.
Oh yeah, sorry. So I wanted to, I guess the perspective that I'm taking from applying DEI is more through professional development. I think that, being involved in DEI work has been one of the greatest just networking opportunities for me. Everyone that I meet within these groups or communities are the most innovative, very energizing. And a lot of DEI work centers around like critical theory, which is kind of an innovative way to look, like an innovative lens to look at things. So it helps you apply that lens to things like instruction, things like reference, radical empathy, or active learning strategies or things like that, kind of embracing different learning, people have different learning strategies. So this you can apply it on a really, and it should be applied on an organizational, level, but a lot of the lessons that you learn, you can use daily in instruction and reference and the way that you interact with people. And yeah, the communities are wonderful, very innovative and energizing. And I'm gonna put a link because I saw one of the words was like community or connect or something. So I'm a part of a community called We Here. So I just put that in the chat. It's for allies, but it's also, there's a community also for librarians of color in there, or anyone who's like library adjacent, it's a great community, and you can go on there and join it and ask questions. People are always really responsive to any questions that you have about librarianship or, you know, applying to library school.
I love the resource sharing that's taking place in the chat. And just a hint for our students and everyone and myself is that you can save the chat so that you have those things to go back to as well.
Lucia,
Yeah.
did you have a question?
Yeah, so actually I was gonna ask you guys, Nicolette had mentioned that part of building her career was mentorships and internships and attending conferences. And she was so great to share her community that she works with. Are there other communities or forums besides LinkedIn, obviously, where you guys think it's maybe important to join as a member, pay for membership versus maybe just following somebody on Instagram or Twitter? I have a few professors here that I've had in the past, so I know that Professor Simpson gave me some great people to follow on Instagram and Twitter. And so I'm just wondering, do you guys have certain like groups or something that you think we should join or that we should follow?
Raheem, do a
do you
pitch
wanna-
for us.
Okay. So Dial,
Right.
that's what we do. We're an excellent organization for that sort of thing. We're an excellent group for that sort of thing. But also outside of us, I know that was a really short pitch. I'm hoping that the face can sell it. But
You have a
outside
few
of
more
us-
minutes because I gave you guys a slide, the pitch
Oh,
membership.
awesome. Yes.
Go for it.
So join us. Join us to become a member of Dial. You would have to become a member of CARL, our larger body. But once a member, you could join any of the special interest groups. We have groups for diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's Dial. We have for reference librarians, Align. For science librarians, I believe is it SEAL? Or yeah, it's SEAL for science libraries, science, engineering, academic libraries. There's something for just about everybody. And outside of CARL, there are other, bodies. So if you're interested in archival work, there are groups that specialize in that. They have two letters that are next to each other. It was something SSAA. I always forget what it is, but they exist. If you go on the ALA website, they have countless special interest groups and other things like that to join. And I know that's really generic advice, but that really is good advice, particularly for the LA area. If you're from the LA Long Beach-ish area, a lot of the groups are really, really active down here. So BCALA, the Black Caucus of the American Library Association, they're very active. Reforma, a group for Spanish-speaking librarians. That's their primary target. They're very, very active. Obviously, it was mentioned we here. That's how a lot of librarians find each other now. A lot. They're very active on social media. Their Facebook is lit, as the kids say. So I definitely recommend checking those out. Anybody else got some other groups?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, just in addition to joining these groups, it's very important to connect with people. And trust me, I'm always going to refer to my experiences. I have a special Gmail account that I just kind of like, when I join groups, I use the Gmail, so they send all the correspondence. There's Lily, there's a lot of associations that you could join. And most importantly, it'll be great not just to be a part of these associations or these networks, but once in a while, just spend your weekend going through just learning about this, because who knows, you could be on an interview and you're talking about a network and you're being on the same network with someone. Trust me, the first time I got my job here in America, I was speaking like I had worked here a lot of times because I had been a member of American Library Association for years before I started working here. And when I got to, I think it was, I'm not sure where it was, Ohio or something, maybe another part of Europe, I was speaking with someone who was on IFLA, that's International Federation for Library Association. So I would advise to connect. I was once a member of the Chartered Institute of Librarians in London. before I got there. So spend time, just get to know this. It may look like it's a lot of work, but trust me, I'm speaking from experiences, it's helped me. And when you're in the spaces, those are some skills that will put you a bit higher than every other person who's got the same degree with you. And one other thing that I did intentionally, I write to these people, right? So I see someone who's being, I have mentors of people in as far as wherever, because I'm just writing to them, introducing myself and telling them what I've seen that they're doing in the social media spaces, and they think I know them, and then they connect with me. So beyond being a part of these associations, connect as much as possible, create the spaces and make the name and learn as much as possible. Thank you.
I would like to add something really, really fast. I just got out of, I got out of graduate school, 2 years ago, and it was really overwhelming trying to like find the different groups and interns. And I still have a long list of like groups kind of broken up into categories, and also internships around the LA area broken up into categories. So I'd be happy to send those resources over to Colin or.
That's terrific. Thank you.
Yes, please do.
I also wanted to add that I follow a number of people who have blogs, librarians who have blogs. I put one in the chat. It's called Digitization 101. It's a Black librarian on the East Coast. She's also a professor at a library school back there, but I heard a couple of people say they were interested in digital archiving. She's great. She also has like some really great resources about how she thinks libraries can become, we can have more diversity in libraries. Like she talks a lot about that. And I find her so insightful. So librarians who have blogs, that can be very, very helpful too.
I want to throw this out there on the heels of all of this conversation, and it ties back to our DEI stuff. Building those relationships with other librarians is critical and crucial to your success. You don't have to be part of every, what is it called? I always forget what they're called, the little email blasts, listservs. You don't have to be part of every listserv. You don't have to be part of every organization out there. In fact, there's no way to manage membership in all of the things. You are going to be so exhausted, and your inbox is it's going to become such a nightmare to manage, to look at every day, 50 emails from listservs, and you're like, I'm not interested in any of this. After a week, it really gets old. The novelty wears out, very quickly, because I was there, so I know. But just find one or two that you're very interested in. And in those spaces, find a person or find people that you really vibe with, that have a politic that is similar to yours. And I don't mean politic like Democrat, Republican. I mean the things that you value in librarianship, the things that you want to see, the changes that you want to make. And if you can, find senior librarians who are doing the work that you want to do, that are aspirational, that look, if they have 80% of what you want, then they're perfect, right? We're not looking for the golden goose. We're just looking for somebody who is mostly where it is that you want to be, politic wise and work wise. Because what you want is, you want a shield, right? If you're interested in doing the DEI work that I recommended you not study as a prime focus, because life is far too short to be fixing white people's problems, just going to be frank. Very, very short. We don't have all the time in the world, and that's a them problem to fix. But if you want to be doing that work, you're going to need people who already, if you're in academic libraries, people who already have tenure. If you're in public libraries, senior librarians who it's not going to be so easy to get rid of them, right? You want to have people who can be your shield, who will say the things in the spaces when you don't feel comfortable saying them, who will work with you to give you kind of the knowledge of the infrastructure, because if you get a job and you're dropped right in there, you might not know how any of the things work, right? Academic libraries, we have, a lot of us have Senate bodies that librarians can join. You might not know how an academic senate works. Public libraries, you might not know about the relationship with the friends of the library and the politics therein, right? Where they're raising thousands of dollars, so they want to say in how certain things go in the library. And it's kind of this, backdoor handshake kind of agreement that you don't want to step on because you don't know, right? And so you don't want to be put in a position where you're like, did I say the wrong thing? Did I do the wrong thing? Did I ruin a relationship? A senior librarian, someone more experienced, can tell you and help you, and you can trust that they have your best interest in mind. So keep that out. Keep that in the fore of your sight when you're looking into organizations to be a part of, and in those organizations, people who you can talk to as mentors and guides. Because there are many people out there who want to be mentors and guides and who want to help librarians, particularly librarians of color or other marginalized sorts of librarians. We don't often want to leave each other high and dry. That's very rare. You have to do something pretty egregious to be, to be set apart from everybody else.
All righty then. Do we have, thank you for all those resources. I'm just loving the chat box there. It's a treasure trove. And I'm wondering if we have any other questions that have occurred that you'd like to have the group address, or any individual in the group. Let's see, do we have any? Colin, did you see anything over here, or?
Yeah, I was chatting with Erin. She's one of our students, and I just wanted to give her the opportunity to talk a bit about an article that she shared. And it kind of goes back to another aspect that I think we're interested in, that is another big system, is like the cataloging. But Erin, I see that you've been sharing a lot in the chat. So, I know we chatted, but don't feel like if I'm putting you on the spot or anything. But if any of the students have anything to share, go ahead, let us know. And I'm also going to post a link here to, it's just a short bit.ly link, but it'll take you to an evaluation of the workshop. So just before you go, even our Dial group members, there's a couple of write-in spaces there for you. But I'll just say I'm just so impressed and humbled that we had such a great turnout and we had such a great conversation, and it's really nice to see. It's really nice to see everyone here. Thank you for coming.
And I echo what Colin said.
Yeah.
Oh, I got one more thing.
I did have something. Yeah, go ahead, Raheem.
Really quick, because I know I'll forget. If you're interested in DEI work, I'm going to go ahead and hard pivot you away from that and pivot you into, something more actionable, something that, you can execute on your own. And that's fugitivity. Boston College is running an amazing series on fugitivity. I don't want to tell you too much about what that looks like. I want you to go and watch I want you to be a part of the workshop. It's free, and they've recorded some of them. So I dropped it in the link for you, but that can be an excellent resource for you to not only meet other, it's webinars, so they're mostly closed, but they do have some workshops where you can meet like-minded librarians who are doing some of the work that you may be interested in doing. And it's people from all across the spectrum, new to librarianship and senior librarians, and people from outside of it, because it's a communications program that is running it. But librarians have been very frequent visitors to this program. So check that out if you have time.
Just very quickly, I'm sorry, I'm going to pop in quickly.
Sure.
I would like to just say to keep a tab on the Dial web page, because we have a symposium coming up. I know that's going to be a great space. No, trust me, I just remembered. We have one coming up in June, and it's going to be a great space. So if you want to learn more about what we've been talking about, and you want to meet other members from other interest groups, we're bringing together all interest groups to talk about DI and librarianship. I know it's going to be amazing, and trust me, just don't miss it. We'll try and send out information, but it's in the first week of June. Raheem, or the team, the board members, I think that's what it is.
And someone will correct me if I'm wrong, June 2nd and June 3rd. We're still putting the itinerary together, but it's June 2nd and June 3rd. We should have some flyers and other things like that ready to go by the first week or so of May. So please keep an eye on the dial on our website or on our LibGuide. We'll have information there as well. So yeah, please come to the Dial Symposium. It'll be fun. And your very own Shamika Simpson will be speaking at the Dial Symposium. So yay. So come by and give, all the love and support.
Well, I'm so glad you did slip that in, Ediyama. That sounds like a real bonanza. Okay, I guess we are at 6:59. If there's no last minute slip-ins that somebody would like to say, I would like to thank you all so much for coming and for sharing your experience, your wisdom, your insights, your inspiration, all of the good stuff and the camaraderie that we've all enjoyed. Thank you so very much. And I hope we'll have more of these. And Colin, thank you for initiating this. That was his idea.
Of course. Yeah, thank you, everyone. I look forward to having more conversations like this in the future. And I really appreciate you taking the time to work with our students this evening. Just round of applause and loads of gratitude. Thanks,
Yes.
Everyone.
Thank you. All right. Until
Have a good
next
evening,
time.
okay?
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
right.
It was great to see you.
Bye.
Bye.
Everybody
It was
stay
wonderful
safe.
meeting you all.
Thank
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Are we staying behind to debrief or no?
Would you
Sure, if
like
you'd
to?
I mean, I'm cool.
I've always been appreciative of what are those called? Yeah, like debriefs. So yeah, if you have a couple of ideas or
Sure, I'd love to hear
comments.
what you thought.
Oh, I thought it went great. What do you think, Nicolette?
Yeah, I thought it went really great. I love